Hello everyone, this is Nate Fossey here. This is a quick tutorial on how to get your data into RStudio. Essentially there are 4 basic steps. We're going to use the Titanic data file as an example. This is an R data file. It is a type of data file that is unique to R, the base R programming language, or to RStudio. And we're going to show you how to upload this kind of data file. Now of course, you can upload other kinds of data files, but here we're going to focus precisely or in particular on what are called R data files. These are data files explicitly used within the R environment. Now, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to download the Titanic data file from the course website. And of course, this is the Harvard web link, and we'll navigate to that. Second, what we're going to do is after we download our data file, we're going to move it to our working folder, because essentially what we want to do whenever we do any kind of data analysis is that we want to make sure that our syntax, our data analysis, and our data are in the same location. That is, that they are in the same working folder or the same working directory or current working directory, otherwise known as a present working directory. The third step we're going to do is we're going to ensure that we use RStudio as our default, because from a previous tutorial I had shown that through installing RStudio, we needed to install base R. So we also want to make sure that whenever we open any kind of R-related data file, that we're telling the computer that we want to use RStudio as the default rather than using base R. And I'll show you how to do that. And then I'm going to finally show you, after saving the data file, so first we're going to find the data file. Second, we're going to copy and paste that data file into our working directory. Third, we're going to ensure that we always open that data file using RStudio, and I'm going to show you how to do it on a PC. You essentially right-click and then select RStudio as the default software package. Fourth, we're going to open within RStudio the data file, and I'm going to show you how to open an R data file within R using both drop-down menus and also the load function. And the load function is actually in particular for R data files. So R has R data files. It can open other kinds of data files, but for now we're going to really focus on using the load function or using drop-down menus. For those of you who don't want to use syntax, I really strongly recommend just following step by step through this using the drop-down menus, and I'll show you this, and it should not take really too long. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find our data file. So where is this? Well, first I'm going to take you to the Canvas webpage, and as you see, we've already opened to my account, so you will have to log in using your course credentials. And if you're there, then you just want to go down to quizzes, and we're going to find our first data file actually located within the first problem set. So we're going to go here we see problem set 1, Introduction to Data and to Categorical Data. So let's click on that once. We're going to scroll all the way down. You're going to hit Preview, or if you're already already using the already taking the quiz and have saved it partially, then you just reopen it, and you want to scroll down to where you find Part 2, and you see a reference to the Titanic data file, and you see a link here. And if you notice that my web browser tells me this file is labeled titanic.rdata. The capital R and the capital D, the R data suffix, that means it's a type of data file particular for R. So here, recall, if you recall from earlier, R recognizes both characters and capitalization of letters. So here, capital R and capital D actually mean this is a particular kind of file. We also have the accompanying R code for use of categorical data. And you notice that this is actually a type of syntax. So any kind of script that we open within the R environment has a suffix .r. For now, we're going to focus on this. We're just going to download this and right-click here. And we're going to, well, why don't we just actually, we should just double-click actually. Yeah, there we go. And if you look actually on the page, I actually downloaded it twice. And then we're going to go to, I'm going to right-click on my download page, and I'm going to move from my download folder, I'm going to go to step 2. After having found the Titanic data file, which of course you go to the course website, you go to quizzes, then you go to the problem set to part 2, and then you just click on the R data file for Titanic. And then you look at the drop down, you look at the downloads menu, and you should see this file right here. It should look something like this. And I just dragged and dropped this from my downloads folder, in fact. I'll show you actually. Here's my downloads folder right here. And I just basically moved it from that. And what I'm also going to do is, because we'll use this later on, since we're already here, I'm going to actually double click or single click this, and I just downloaded, if you can tell right here, I'm going to move this on screen so you can see. I downloaded the R syntax, and we're going to use that later. But for now, we're just going to really focus on loading our data into RStudio. So once we've done that, we found that from the course website. Here we see the R data file, and we're also going to move in, I'm going to move in our syntax here as well. And I'm going to delete actually a copy that I made of the R data file. Now, when we do this, the next step I recommend here, and this is just simply, I would call it sort of good data practice or data science practice, is download these data to the same working folder. And by working folder, I just simply mean your current working directory, wherever it is that you want to set your project. So here I'm going to create a new folder. I just right-clicked on my desktop, and I'm going to call this Prob-Set1. You want to keep it relatively short. It's better not to include spaces. And I'm going to just drag and drop my script, and most importantly for now, the Titanic data set here into this current working directory. And this is going to be where we have our little project. Now, as you recall, we had downloaded base R and RStudio. So now what we're going to do next is we're going to double click on this folder. And as you'll see here, I want to show to you what we have here. We have in this folder, we have both the R Titanic data sets, and I'm going to show these as icons, as large icons. You see you have the Titanic data sets and R data file, and then we have the script. Now we're going to open this, but I want to address our third point here, which is this important fact. We want to set RStudio as the default. Otherwise, if I double click this, I'll show you what happens. Keep in mind we have both installed, and I have these as desktop icons just for familiarity. I have one of the latest versions of base R, and then we have RStudio. We always want to make sure we open with RStudio. Now, of course, if I just double click on this, I'll show you what happens. Actually, I already set this as the default, so we're already pretty good here. And if you'll see this is actually a history file, but we don't need to worry about that. Typically, when you start a new session, I want to just show this. Open with, and then what I want to set, I'm going to set this as R for Windows, GUI front end. This is base R, and this is what happens if you actually don't set, you don't want to say this workspace image, but I just want to first show you what happens if you do not set RStudio as the default. So this is what happens. I just actually set this as, well, I already set this as RStudio. I do want to close this. Close. Okay, I'm going to show you what happens when you set as choose the default program, and then I select R for Windows, and I always will open with R for Windows. It actually opened base R, but I want to see if we opened Titanic. Let's see if we actually can see Titanic. I'll list the objects here within the workspace rather. Okay, so here we see I loaded Titanic into R, base R, and you don't want to do that. You can do everything you want within RStudio as within R. I mean, this is base R is fine, but I would really recommend, I'm not going to save the workspace image, I would really recommend, because when you first start and install anything before you even touch R, you really want to set the default. So in my PC, I simply right click on my data file rather, and then I say open with, and then I go down and I select the default program, and then I select RStudio, and then I click OK, and it says, and I make sure that this is selected here. Always use the selected program to open this kind of file. So what we did is now is we set as our default program the Titanic data set. I'm gonna, And as you see right here, you actually have the data file. You have the, well, you should have it here. Let's just see. And I'm going to actually close out of the R session here. So now I'm going to double click one more time, and we're just going to double check to make sure that we have this open. And here exactly this is what you should see. You should see a data file that has 1,045 observations and 6 variables. So what we just did is we opened what we have in our working folder, this R data file. And this is different than what is saved within, what is installed with our base R or RStudio, because our base R and RStudio includes a data set called Titanic. So if we just actually didn't install this, we could accidentally install a data set called Titanic. I just want to make sure that when you open the data file, you just want to make sure you look to your environment. So you may have another tab here. Go to your environment tab, and after double clicking, I'll show this one more time. After double clicking the Titanic data file, our data file, you should click on the environment page and then check to see that you have this many observations and these many variables. And from there, you essentially have the file. And if we want to work within RStudio, let's just create a new R script. And we're going to save this R script file, save as. We're going to save this R script within our present working directory. So we'll just do, let's say, load R script. And it automatically saved it as an R script. And I'm just going to show you, I'm going to create a little comment here. I like to do this just to delimit, what you're doing within your script itself. I'm going to show you, first of all, that first how to load a data set within R, within the R menu system. And that's the last step that I have here. There are 2 ways of actually uploading within RStudio as a data file. So you could just double click at this point, the actual data file. But I want to show something else. I want to show that basically, let's just say we open this script here, and we'll see that we have actually saved the session. I saved what I had typed here, but you'll see if you look at the environment, there's nothing listed here in the environment. There's no data set to remember. So I'm going to show you first how to use the drop-down menu to open an R data file. Second, I'm going to show you how to open a data file using what is called the load function. So first, I'm going to show you how to use the drop-down menu within RStudio. Now, recall that you could just double-click the data file, but I'm also going to show you within RStudio how to open this. You just go to the top menu, you will click Open File. Pretty easy. You find your working directory. So here we have RStudio, our desktop, but let's go back to where we were before, because it actually, your default is your current working directory, or where you actually were last using RStudio. And here we see the Titanic data set. And we just click on that, and we click Open. And it's asked me, do you want to load the R data file into the global environment? And you just say yes. And look here. What R does, which is pretty nice, is with RStudio rather, is that it includes in the default the load function, which basically is, if you just sort of neglect everything up until here, this is simply your location on your computer of your folder, and then the folder name. And of course, the default here, as you'll see, you'll see that you can copy and paste this into your script. So I'm actually going to get rid of that, and I'm going to copy and paste the script itself right here. And then I'm going to show that in subsequent instances, we can actually just use the script itself rather than uploading using the drop-down menu. So I showed you how to open using the drop-down menu, but now I'm going to show you basically using the load function, which is specific to our data files. We're not going to focus on other kinds of data files, although that's relevant, but this is really all you need if you just want to use the command. So I'm going to actually remove this. This is the little brush, a little broomstick, and you'll see that the environment is now empty, and we can confirm that. If you want to type in this little function called list, and you'll see there's nothing here. And what we're going to do is we're going to just basically highlight this, and we're going to click run, and we're running our scripts, and now we see that we have our data set open. So that's basically it. So just to review, what we did today was, in this little session in our 15 minutes, is we, if I can take us back to our opening page, we basically had 4 steps. We went to the course website to open to find our data file. We used our script to, we created a working directory for our problem set, and then we set our default to RStudio rather than base R, and then we learned how to open an R data file either using the drop-down menu where you go to File and then you click Open, and then it asks sort of a prompt, and then I just showed you how we can open an R data file using the load function. And that's really how you get your data into R. And once you copy and paste that little command, that little bit of command, and once you set your default to RStudio, you're all good to go. And as I said before, it's really good, I think, good practice to have everything you need. This is an R history file, by the way. This basically means that whatever you did in your R session is saved. And this basically means that next time you open RStudio, it'll save whatever you've been doing. But I basically showed you how to get your data into R, and you should have no problem. So that's it for today. I hope this has been helpful, and thank you very much. Bye-bye.